and they think that all this comes down from the sky. They looked at the fruit platter and they thought that it actually happened by itself. So no, it didn't. My wife made it. She bought it, prepared it, put it down. And the biggest koyach actually goes to Benny, who every week, several times a week, he provides all the goodies. Doesn't like to take credit for it. He takes only cash. No, I'm just joking. Doesn't like to take credit. What? Credit card, anything. But and today, like at the last minute, he called me, "Are you giving a class?" I said, "Maybe if you want." Last minute, he put together a beautiful meal, and it's especially nice that because today is a special day. Does anybody know what today is? It's Wednesday. It's one of the 7 days of the week. It's so special. God only made 7 days. Today is Wednesday. But in addition to that, it's called Tu B'Shvat. Now, what does the word Tu B'Shvat mean? And what I'm saying is not something profound, and I'm sure everybody knows it, but maybe worth repeating. Tu is the letters. It's the 9th and the 6th letter of the Aleph base. The Tes, or the Tet, like some people say, and the Vav, which is 9 and 6 is 15, which is an awkward way of actually writing it, because you should write it a Yud and a Hey, which is 10 and 5. That's the easiest way to write 15, but we don't do it because that is Hashem's name, and we don't use that. Does anybody know another number that we don't write because it's Hashem's name? Excuse me? I can't hear you. 16. Tomorrow, 16. We don't write that either. We don't write the Yud and the Vav. Same reason. It's part of Hashem's name. Hashem's name is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So we call it Tu B'Shvat. Now, interestingly enough, we make a nice, it's a beautiful thing, but Tu B'Shvat is not mentioned in the Torah at all. In fact, it's only referenced once, in only one place, in the oral law, and that is in the Mishnah of Rosh Hashanah. So I actually prepared a sheet of that Mishnah, which I'm going to learn quickly, but I just want to tell you that even where it's mentioned once, there's an argument when the holiday which we represent with Tu B'Shvat, when it should be. And it's a machlokas of the Beis Shammai and the Beis Hillel. We hold like the Beis Hillel until Mashiach comes, with the exception of 6 places, I think it is. We always rule like the Beis Hillel. When Mashiach comes, topsy-turvy, just the opposite. Everything but 6 places we will hold like Beis Shammai. And one day I'll talk about the reason why. Now, we say, and everybody says it, what's the significance of Tu B'Shvat? Does anybody know? What do we say? It's what? It's the new year for trees. Does anybody really know what that means?
The first fruit.
But what does it mean? It's the New Year's. It's the first fruit. What does it mean?
They wake up.
So we're going to learn about that, what it is. It's not so simple, but we're going to take the shortcut, and we're going to learn what it means. But let's understand first that there are actually different New Years. We have different New Years. And this concept should not be strange to anybody, because even in our secular world, there are different New Years. We have the traditional calendar year. We have a calendar year. Who can think of other years we have? Fiscal year. It should come from the shul's accountant. It's a fiscal year. What other year do we have? Can anybody think of another year? We have the school year. We refer to it as the school year. Okay? And there are others. I'm interested to hear if anybody can come up with other ones. But basically, it's the same idea in our religion that we have many years. And we're going many New Years. And we're going to learn now the first Mishnah of Rosh Hashanah. Very simple Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Arba Rosh Hashanim Haim. There are 4 New Years. I'll wait. Okay, there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs. Be'echad b'Nisan, the first of Nisan is, looking at the Mishnah, Rosh Hashanah l'Melochim v'Regolim. It's Rosh Hashanah for as far as the kings go, and for this Regolim. It's questionable whether this means holidays or it means seasons, but it's pretty much the same thing, that when we count how many seasons or how many holidays, there are 3 in a year, there are 4 seasons in a year, and it has tremendous halachic implications, which again we will not go into tonight. But the first thing the Mishnah says, that it's Rosh Hashanah l'Melochim, as far as the kings go. So there's an argument between Rashi and Tosfos what that means. Rashi says it has to do that when we write contracts, in the olden days, we used to write, it is this was written in the 24th day of the 6th month of the 7th year of the reign of King so-and-so. So we always referred to how many years the king was king, the king reigned, and when do you determine what is a year? It starts with the first day of Nisan. So if he became a king on the last day of Adar, the first day of Nisan was already his 2nd year. And vice versa, if he became king on the 2nd day of Nisan, he has got a whole year to go before he comes to the next year. Okay. The next Rosh Hashanah is Be'echad Be'elul. And the first day of Elul is what kind of a new year is the first day of Elul? Rosh Hashanah L'Maaser Behema. It's the beginning of the year from when we tithe. We give 10% of our cattle, we give away, and we count the time, the cutoff time, when an animal was born. You don't give 10% of all your animals. You just, every year you give 10% what was born in that year. So the cutoff is the first day of Elul. Reb Elazar. This is what Reb Elazar says. Reb Shimon Omrim be'echad b'Tishra. That no, as far as the animal goes, it's the first day of Tishra. Okay. Mishnah moves on. The 3rd new year is be'echad b'Tishra, the first day of Tishra. That is the Rosh Hashanah. Mishnah says it's the Rosh Hashanah l'Shonim, as far as years go, l'Shmitan, as far as Shemitah goes. Shemitah, there's 7 years. When is the cutoff? It's first day of Tishra. L'Yovlas for the Jubilee year. L'Natiyah for planting. We'll talk about the planting in Eretz Yisrael later, why we have to know when it's the year. And L'Yerokas, and for vegetables. Okay. And that was the 3rd one. And now we come to the final one, which pertains to today, is Be'echad B'Shvat, in the first day of Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan. It's the Rosh Hashanah for the trees. Kedivrei Beis Shammai. That's what Beis Shammai says. Beis Hillel Omrim, Beis Hillel says, no, B'Chamisha Asar Bo. The 15th of Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, is when it's Rosh Hashanah for the trees. And we'll talk in a minute what that means. Now that we've learned this Mishnah, so let's recap for a second. So we have 4 new years. First day of Nisan, first day of Elul, first day of Tishra, and the 15th day of Shvat. Now, very simply, why is the first day of Tishrei considered the new year? Anybody know? Why? Why is that the Rosh Hashanah? What happened that day? So even though we call it, like this year was 5778, so which means it's 5,778 years since creation, which is not exactly true, because creation was the 25th of Elul, 6 days before that. But on Rosh Hashanah is when man was created, and that's when we consider the world being created. Because without man, there is no world. Without subjects, there is no king. Ein melech belo am. So that's why it's important to know that Rosh Hashanah is considered the beginning of the year, because that's when man is created. And as the first Rashi in the Torah says, Hashem only made the world for us, Torah, and for Jews to do mitzvahs, and that's why it's important. Talking about Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah is really not mentioned in the Torah that much. Certainly doesn't talk about doing tshuva. It doesn't talk about the world being created. You don't see it. You don't see it anywhere. There is a code, though, because the first word in Bereshis, if you rearrange it, it's Aleph B'Tishrei, the first day in Tishrei. The letters Beis, Reish, Aleph, Shin, Yud, Tov, so it's Aleph B'Tishrei. But other than that, it doesn't specifically or explicitly say in the Torah that the world was created then. There's only one thing that the Torah talks about as far as Rosh Hashanah. Anybody know? Any Jews in the room? To blow the shofar. On that day, the Torah says you should blow the shofar. That's the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah. Other than that, it doesn't really talk about it. Anyway, that's the third Rosh Hashanah which the Mishnah states. And the last one, which we said was Tu B'Shvat, the 15th day of Shvat. That's the New Year for trees. Now, what does that mean? Because when we came into Eretz Yisrael, one of the first mitzvahs we got was Hashem told us that you're going to be planting trees. The first 3 years, you can't use the trees. You can't. It's called Orla. The fourth year, whatever crop there was in the fourth year, that you had to give to Hashem. And there's a whole bunch of laws what that means, giving it to Hashem. And finally, on the fifth year, you can enjoy and eat your fruits. So we have to know, when is the cutoff? When the crops sprouted, when is it called second year, third year, fourth year? By the way, when the fruit when it has a bud, that's when it's called that it's started coming out. Until then, it's not considered a fruit yet. So therefore, if you planted a tree and it started sprouting on the 14th of Shvat, yesterday, today's already the second year. If you plant something tomorrow, you have a whole year to go around. So
applies today to these days?
Absolutely.
Let's say you plant a tree
in Israel. It applies in Israel. Yeah. Sure.
for 3 years.
3 years, you can't. It's very problematic. That's why we have to be careful when we buy fruit. If it comes from Israel, I mean, there are ways around it, but...
What about the fruit that you have? Let's say I planted 3 here.
No, it doesn't apply here.
You put it in the next
Yeah,
year,
yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the customs of what we do on Tu B'Shvat. I'm sure most of you are aware, but I'll just say it. One of the customs is to eat a new fruit on today. That's why we provided you with these goodies. And when you eat a new fruit, you get another benefit, and that is you get to make a shechiyana, which is a beautiful bracha. So that's, somebody should always try to make that bracha today, Tu B'Shvat. The other minhag is, and we incorporated that in the platter as well, that you should try to eat from the 7 species mentioned in the Torah from Eretz Yisrael. And they are, anybody want to volunteer that they know all 7? Don't tell me one. If you know all 7, say it.
Fig, pomegranate, date, anavim, grapes.
I think you said grapes already. Grapes and anavim are the same thing.
I know, but...
Okay.
Tamarim, date, olive.
Olives. 2 more, which are not fruits. Barley,
wheat.
And wheat. Very good. Excellent. Okay? The order which the Torah gives it to you is Eretz, Chita, wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and the Torah actually says honey, but it really means dates. Okay? Now, and there's one more beautiful minhag that's actually two more beautiful minhagim. One of them is in the Sephardim, going back 4 or 5 centuries, they used to actually have a Tu B'Shvat Seder. Nowadays, Hasidic Rebbe's have it. In fact, I was invited to one in Brooklyn tonight. I'm not going. And they do a beautiful Seder, like Pesach. They set the table, and they have all these 7 species, and they sing, and there's all kinds of beautiful things, ceremonial things that happen. What? Sephardim do it, yes, but even Ashkenazim are starting to do it. We're copying you. I'm waiting for us to copy you that we can have rice on Pesach. What?
Rimonim and esrogim are not considered?
Rimon, yes, pomegranates. Yeah. Esrogim, no. Esrogim is something that's not mentioned in the Torah. We're not even 100% sure if that's what we're supposed to use on Sukkos, but it says a beautiful fruit, and that's a very beautiful fruit.
It wasn't listed as one of the 7.
It's not one of the 7, no.
And Rimonim also?
Rimonim was pomegranates. Yeah. And another beautiful custom to do is, and this is very popular in Eretz Yisrael, is to plant a tree on Tu B'Shvat. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of tree. Trees are so important. I'm always like, I get a little chill down my back when I learn this, that if you're in the middle of planting a tree, and Mashiach is coming, he arrived, you do not stop. Okay? To greet Mashiach is the greatest thing that a person ever hopes for, but if you're in the middle of planting, and the only thing, you can be in the middle of davening, you can be in the middle of serving pizza, you can do anything, you go run to Mashiach. But if you're planting a tree, you don't stop. Micha, the Novi Micha, he prophesied that the time will come when we will all be in Gan Eden and we will all sit under the grapevine or a fig tree, because that to him was a very high level of Kedusha. You know, we call the Torah a tree of life. Everybody's heard that. Eitz Chaim, Torah, tree of life. But really, it's the inverted tree. The roots of the Torah are it's upside down. The roots are in heaven. And the fruits are facing down. We get the fruits in this world, the Torah and everything. We get to pick it. But the roots are in heaven. You know, Israel is the only country that has more trees today than it had a century ago. Every other country on the planet, or at least on Earth, on the planet, we're chopping down trees all the time and making room for houses and roads and other things. But in Israel, it's just the opposite. We don't chop down a tree. The Torah tells us, by the way, that even in times of war, and when we're not allowed to cut down the fruit trees. Trees are very. First of all, they're health-wise, they're very important to us because they remove toxic gases, obnoxious from the atmosphere, and gives us clean, pure oxygen. And it's brought down that on Tisha B'Av, on Tu B'Shvat, you should plant, if you plant parsley on Tu B'Shvat, they should be ready for Pesach to have at the Seder. So that's like a very immediate benefit you get from it. But we should also, it's important, and I'll tell you a little story that's brought down in the Gemara, we should also plant something that takes years to come up. There's a very famous story about Choni HaMagel. Everybody's heard of him. 70 years. He was called Choni HaMagel, and he had a circle. He drew a circle, and he stayed in the center of the circle, and he would pray from there for rain and everything. And one day he was walking by, and he saw an old man planting something. He said, "What are you planting?" He says, "I'm planting a carob tree." He says, "How long is it going to take till it sprouts?" He says, "It takes 70 years. He goes, "And you expect to be around? Why are you planting it?" He says, "When I came into this world, there were already carob trees. Somebody planted it for me, so when I would be born, I'm planting it for future, for my children and grandchildren." So it's very important to do that. We all know, we're all familiar with the 3 R's. Today, we have to be very conscious of our environment, and a lot of laws, even halacha, have to do with saving the ground, of preserving the health of the soil. And we all know the 3 R's. The 3 R's are, number 1, reduce. Cut back on your paper use and on everything else. Economize and don't increase the waste that you'll have in the world. That's the first R. The next R is reuse. Reuse stuff you've used. You know, everybody throws everything out. You use it once. We're very used to disposable, but use a cup that you can reuse instead of disposable cups. Use a washcloth instead of paper towels. So use real utensils instead of plastic. Of course, certain times it's not feasible because for other reasons, but that's the second R, to reuse. And the third one is recycle. This is not a Jewish thing. It's all over. You see that these 3 R's. Recycle. Everything can be recycled, even if you have a compost bin. You put your stuff in there and it gets compost. But there really is a 4th R. And with that, I'm going to end my class tonight. The 4th R is remember. And that is remember where all this came from, where the tree comes from, from a little seed, trees come. And remember that Hashem gives us everything, and He asks us, in the Torah, He asks us specifically to guard what He put on this planet for us and to safeguard it. And that is one of the messages of Tu B'Shvat. Thank you.